and it's being given by somebody who I don't even see Zon. Zon, are you here?
Right here.
Oh, thank God. Okay. Okay, so it's really important. You know, you never stop having teachers, and thank God. And so I held this up yesterday, which is our first conference called Expanding Horizons. And it was in working on this project that I first met Suzanne Smeaton. I visited her at Eli Wilner, where she was working at the time. And she, and actually Eli at the time, but she was so instrumental in opening up to me the criticality of thinking about the frame. This was our second year, the centrality of the edge. But frames are something that are absolutely critical. And it's not just the specific frame, but it's the act of framing. And what is the frame? What does the frame say to us? Obviously, I could go on. This is about Zon, but I do want to make you all think about, in your everyday, every single moment life, the criticality of framing. And so I'm really thrilled. Zon has actually participated in many of our conferences, but was involved in the first one, and is involved in our ongoing conversation about the frame. She really is a pioneer in the study of American frames, and I'm so thrilled that really the stars aligned. This is one of the few things they say. This is the age of Aquarius. It feels like we're still in Mercury retrograde. But this is the one of the things that made me feel that, oh my gosh, the tides are turning. As it turns out, she had worked on the frame, the choice of frame, and done work on what we called an artist's purposeful choice of frame in support of artistic vision. But I can't tell you how thrilled I am to introduce, I guess we've become partners in inquiry, but she's certainly been my teacher, and she's a wonderful human being as well, Suzanne Smeaton.
Thanks. This is going to be tricky. The glasses or no glasses, it's in that very elusive middle ground. Get myself acclimated. I made a recent discovery regarding PowerPoint, which is laughable when I think about how many years I've been using PowerPoint. Back in January, I was giving a webinar, and the people on the other end told me to open up Presenter's View, which I didn't even know was a thing. And it became a revelation so that I could actually have that available to me on the podium. And so I'm all about Presenter's View these days, except we don't have the laptop on the podium. So they were very nice to print out what I would have seen in Presenter's View. But my talk today is very brief, and I hope you'll think of it as a sort of intellectual amuse-bouche to follow Wanda's terrific explication of the painting and its meanings. And it's thanks to Lisa and her conferences that I've come to know and think of Wanda as a good friend and partner in crime over the years, and I'm very delighted to be here. In the spirit of the theme of the conference today, Boundless Horizons, I hope that you'll come to think that actually, right in plain sight, we can make new discoveries all the time, even for artworks that are much loved and much studied over many years. Where do I point to you?
To change slides. So to change slides, camera doesn't actually go to the screen.
So this one. Great. So the genesis of this talk was since 1990, believe it or not, I've been writing for a trade magazine, a frame trade magazine called Picture Framing Magazine. And they approached me last year and said, we want to do a series called Masterpieces, Framing Masterpieces, where we're looking at the frame that's around iconic works of art. And I wasn't the only contributor, but I've done several for them. Of course, they wanted Washington Crossing the Delaware initially. And then I did Sunday Morning on La Grande Jatte in Chicago. I just completed Whistler's Mother, arrangement in gray and black. And of course, American Gothic. So when I had first seen this painting at the Art Institute of Chicago, it was in the 1990s. And I remember at the time being puzzled by the frame that was around it. It was a style of frame that I was used to seeing on paintings from the 14 and 1500s. And I knew that when I was going to write about this, that I had to reach out to Wanda, of course. And we were chatting about the project, and she said, well, you know, Wood was really an accomplished woodworker and made most of his frames, which I did already know that part. But I didn't realize so much about Wood's background, and it was one of the fun aspects of learning new things about something I think you know a lot about. I learned that when Wood was still in Cedar Rapids, he had taken a correspondence course with Ernest Batchelder, who ran Gustav Stickley's Craftsman magazine. And then the day he graduated from high school, he immediately went to Minneapolis to study with Batchelder and attend the School of Design, Handicraft, and Normal Art, known as the Handicraft Guild. And although Batchelder was not there after that first summer, Wood stayed on, and he learned how to make jewelry, copperware, ornamental iron fixtures, and furniture. And by the time he returned to Cedar Rapids in 1916, he was an accomplished carpenter. Well, I'd seen, speaking of Daughters of the Revolution, I'd seen a number of other Grant Wood paintings that were in frames that I was sure were artist made. And this frame was one of the first times that I saw a wood frame that was painted with stars and a nameplate. And as I was studying for this talk further, I read, and it's on your bibliography, a really fascinating book called Grant Wood's Studio, Birthplace of an American Icon, of a Birthplace of American Gothic. And it explores Wood's studio, known as 5 Turner Alley. Wood completely designed and created the studio in the top floor of a carriage house, a space that had been offered to him by his longtime friend and patron, David Turner. He lived and worked there from 1924 to 1935. Joan Milosh writes, this is from the book, Wood used a variety of moldings as trim throughout the studio, just as he made unique frames for his paintings. He applied wood trim as a framing device to outline various shapes in the studio. He used a flat profile of frame, like battens, on a vertically sided building, like those on the house in American Gothic. And that's what this profile is, a very flat profile. He also used this rounded profile on many of his frames. And this is one of my personal favorites. The shape of the frame so beautifully rhymes with the rolling hills. Even the way the painted surface of the frame has aged and developed a crackle pattern alludes to the furrowed earth and the pleasing effect. And this particular profile, which is what I think of Grant Wood's #1 profile, is on many of these paintings. And sometimes he includes a beaded sight edge. Other times, it's just a plain sight edge. There's Parson Weems for you. But almost always, it's a simple painted finish. And here we see Wood at 5 Turner Alley on the left. And he's standing, as you can see, next to his painting, The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. And it's interesting, I was scrutinizing the frame, and I have to say that period frames are so invaluable to my work as a period frame historian to understand the lives of paintings and the many frames that have surrounded them. But I realized that this painting was at the Met, so I marched over to the Met to see what frame was on, and it's no longer in this. This seems to be possibly that rounded molding. It's hard to see, but it does look like the frame is gilded, which is a bit of an unusual choice for Wood. Currently, the frame is in a more modern frame. It's a simple silver step frame, something like we might see on a Charles Sheeler. The painting, no longer in this photo. It's now surrounded by a much simpler, more contemporary frame. And on the right, I'm just including a photo. This is Grant Wood with his sister Nan in his home in Iowa City. And I'm just showing it because he created this fireplace, but more importantly, he designed and crafted the furniture, both the chair and the ottoman that he and Nan are sitting in. And I'm sharing this just because I feel like his involvement as a craftsman in thinking of things in their totality, not just the artwork, but the larger setting, was really such a big part of his thought process. But in 1927, Wood was commissioned to design a window for the Veterans Memorial Building in Cedar Rapids. And he spent the next 2 years creating full-scale drawings and supervising the window's construction and installation. The completed window is 24 feet high. And I love this thought about these drawings that he made, this practice of these preparatory drawings. You'll see why. The glass was provided through the Emile Fry Art Glass Company of St. Louis, but the glass was generated in Munich, and Wood went to Munich in 1928 to oversee the work. And while he was there, he visited the Alte Pinakothek in Munich. Which brings me back to American Gothic. So these are just 2 exemplar paintings from the collection of the Met. While at the Alte Pinakothek, he saw Flemish and German Renaissance paintings by Hans Memling, Hans Holbein, Lucas Cranach, and Albert Dürer. And in the Grant Wood studio book, Joni Kinsey writes, he was admiring the clarity, expressive contours, decorative details, smooth surfaces, and rich coloristic effects of these works, along with their vivid evocation of a historical moment and a particular place. And I think when we look at American Gothic, this is an interesting point. He is clearly placing the individuals in a setting with a meaningful landscape behind it. During this period, frames, meaning this early period, frames were still very much considered architecture. The single canted sill at the bottom is a style known as Wasserschlag, or water sill, and it sometimes is called a rain sill. It's a direct reference to windows in homes during that period that were canted in this way so that the rain would fall to the outside of the home rather than into it. And again, the frame on the left is not a Wasserschlag, but it's one of my personal favorites of the Met, where you can see that the painting, even without the frame, has included the columns. He's really amplifying this notion of looking through a window or out of a window. And then on the right, of course, a really beautiful example of a Wasserschlag frame. And Wanda had said to me, you know, seeing these artworks really had a big impact on Wood. And when he returned, he really initiated an entirely new style. And he came back, and American Gothic was painted the next year. So now the style of frame on American Gothic starts to make sense. But the question that I had was, is this frame original? Was it chosen or crafted by Grant Wood? Well, happily, I went to Chicago last fall and had a wonderful love fest with the frame department there, and Charlie Petraszewski was really gracious, and we were able to look at American Gothic and discuss it. And I thought, oh, sure. And he said, you need to see this period photo. This is taken in Cedar Rapids on the occasion of the 1942 Memorial Exhibition. And here we see Nan Wood Graham and Dr. Byron McKeeby 12 years after American Gothic was painted. And there's that simple Wasserschlag frame, but not so fast. What appeared to be the same frame at a glance was not. Both frames are simple Wasserschlag frames, but the earlier frame is much narrower than the current one. So still, was the frame in the 1942 photograph original? Well, I couldn't find any images between 1930 and 1942 showing American Gothic. But Wanda saved the day, and she found a wonderful 10-minute film clip from Iowa that shows Wood speaking about American Gothic, and actually a number of his other works, that's a whole other story. And so I was really pleased to see the 1939 image. So yes, 9 years after it was painted, but we felt pretty confident that we could say yes. So this was the original frame. So we've not been able to precisely learn when the narrow Wasserschlag frame, the original, was changed to this wider iteration of frame. We do have a picture. Wanda shared with me a picture from the 1980s of her standing in front of American Gothic, and it's in this wider frame on the right. But it is really personally gratifying to me that whoever changed the frame for whatever reason, they did retain White's vision of this Wasserschlag frame treatment. Well, I might have ended my story there. That's really fascinating. But as I prepared for this talk, Wanda mentioned White's preparatory sketch, tiny, just about the size of an index card. The story goes that soon after Wood had seen the house in Eldon, Iowa, that he had this concept for American Gothic and made this pencil sketch. When I was looking at the pencil sketch, but call me crazy, but he sketched the frame. You can see, I don't have a pointer, but you can look on either side, and you can see that the frame concept is clearly limbed by wood in the picture. You can see it most distinctly at the bottom of each side where the frame projects out. So now I'm most confident that this narrow frame from 1942 is the original, and that it was part of Wood's vision for American Gothic from the very beginning. So now when we look at American Gothic, I hope you will see it through new eyes, that you'll understand that this simple Gothic Wasserschlag frame was absolutely meant to place the painting for us in this fabulous juxtaposition of early Northern Renaissance painting and a modern day vision. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there any information about how it got to the second frame from the first?
Oh, the answer is no. And this was where I will raise my never-ending lament, is traditionally frames are not treated as accessioned objects, and there is often little or no documentation about if a frame is changed, why it's changed, who made the decision, what informed their choices. Chicago's been really, really ambitious and active in the framing and reframing of their paintings, and been doing really a really terrific job. But that was one of the very first things we did, is we went, I had Charlie ask for me and check about curatorial records, and there's no record whatsoever. So I don't know. Wanda said, well, maybe the original wood frame became damaged and had to be replaced. I'm not even, since we don't know when the change occurred, yet another stream for me to pursue in my abundant free time. But we don't know what created the change. And so when the change occurred, all of those things, like who was in charge of framing or who was in charge of curatorial at the time the frame was changed. So no, we don't know.
So did Wood stretch his own canvas, and did he make the stretcher himself?
Well, I believe he painted on masonite.
Masonite.
He painted on masonite.
That's right. Okay.
But I feel absolutely certain that Wood took real delight in designing and creating this Wasserschlag frame for his painting. And I like to think too that whomever changed this, by this time American Gothic had already become an incredible American icon. And in our modern world, I think we like the bigger frame for the more important artwork. And so they still retained this lovely simplicity of the Wasserschlag, but they did make it wider because it's a really important painting in our consciousness. Anyone else?
I would just say, I think that's the answer. If somebody aestheticized in a certain way, somebody wanted the painting to have a little bit more gravitas.
Absolutely.
And so they took the style and they just upped the inches.
Yes.
That's my guess. I mean, there was that whole era where curators were doing that and felt no shame in necessarily.
Oh, absolutely.
In making a new frame because it did better for the picture in their minds.
What's interesting about this, the new frame, the current frame, is it is gilded, but it's very worn. It has some abrasions. It has some really pleasing losses to the gilded surface where the clay is showing through. But even though it's not barn wood per se, which is a whole other kind of surface treatment, it has that rustic feel. So there's this nice conversation really about, this country scene and the American Gothic house behind, and the rusticity really of the frame, even though it's a gilded frame. Thank you very much.